It's still good morning, Anambra. Now, according to Punch newspapers, President Bola Tinubu has submitted 4 tax reform bills to the National Assembly for consideration. In a letter read during their respective plenary sessions by Senate President Godswill Akpabio and Speaker of the House of Representatives Tajuddin Abbas on Thursday, the president explained that the bills were crafted to align with his administration's goals. The proposed bills include the Nigeria Tax Bill 2024, which aims to establish a comprehensive fiscal framework for tax regulation. The Tax Administration Bill seeks to provide a clear and concise legal structure for managing taxes in Nigeria to reduce disputes and enhance efficiency. And of course, additionally, the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill is intended to repeal the Federal Inland Revenue Service Act and create the Nigerian Revenue Service. And the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill proposes the creation of a tax tribunal and a tax ombudsman to address tax-related matters. Now, the president stated that these bills would bolster Nigeria's fiscal institutions and are in line with its government's broader development objectives for the country. Now, on Good Morning Anambra today, we are here to actually see things the way they are. Does Nigeria actually look like a nation where taxes are paid? And of course, from what the president said, it seems every government that comes on board, tries to do tax reform to suit whatever he's coming up with. And so we are going to look at these issues with the person in the studio who is going to help us really look at this. He is a lecturer, Department of Economics, Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu University. Ibariam is none other than Nonso Ekesiobi, an economist. You're welcome to the studio, Nonso.
Thank you. It's great to be back here again. Good morning.
All right. Now, it's quite, an eye-opener to us that it's like every administration that comes on board comes with reforms. So how do you say that?
Well, first and foremost, there is no law that is static,
or there is no policy that is static. Everything is subject to change. So definitely, whenever we have certain policies like this, those policies should be flexible enough to evolve with respect to the needs of the times. So there's nothing wrong with calling for tax reforms as far as our country is concerned. But like you rightly pointed out, how do you connect these reforms to results? What is that gap in between, talking about reforms to actually seeing concrete results? These are the issues that countries like Nigeria have, and it's a welcome conversation that can help to streamline and deepen our tax system.
All right. Now, the bill actually, or from what the president said, he said that he's doing this to align with his administration's goals. And one of the bills says the proposed bills include the Nigeria Tax Bill 2024, which aims to establish a comprehensive fiscal framework for tax regulation. So what does that mean?
Yeah, you see, this tax administration in this country has been allowed to just run in an abrupt manner. And it is no surprise because Nigeria has never really taken taxes seriously. We began the tax conversation when our quote-unquote main source of revenue, which is crude oil, started having certain fluctuations, and the thing is beginning to affect our fiscal position. That is when we remembered, they actually pay taxes in this country. So before now, everybody talks about crude oil, revenue, federal allocation, and the rest. But now we are beginning to move our discussion to the tax. We're beginning to move our discussion to the tax environment, which is good. It's a welcome development. Then the issue of strengthening the tax policy framework, like the first bill you pointed out is concerned. This thing is as a result of this suggestion of the fiscal committee, the Federal Fiscal Committee, that was set up by Mr. President. So the fiscal committee took up this responsibility, and in trying to sanitize our taxation environment, the fiscal committee brought about these proposals. The fiscal committee brought about these proposals, and these proposals are geared to help make our tax system more transparent and more productive.
All right. There's this thing that has been bugging me. You know, when you talk about tax payments, we travel to other developed countries or nations of the world, and most times you hear people talk about they paid huge taxes, you know, and it's not as if what they are paying is not painful to them, but you still see them, you know, staying put, doing what they should do, because they tell you they see value, so to speak, for their money. But in our own case, when you look at Nigeria, does Nigeria really look like a country where taxes are paid? Does it look like one?
Normally, taxes, apart from it being a civil responsibility, and the responsibility as well of the government of the day to oversee its administration, but it is supposed to be the taxes, especially generated from the economy, should be a very crucial instrument in trying to drive economic activities. So when you say that do we look like a country that pays tax, the answer is glaring, because like you alluded to, when you look at other countries, countries that, yes, have a very firm and organized tax system, you see that they don't joke with it. Both the person who is supposed to pay and the person who they are paying to. Because at that point, when you don't pay, it's, the taxes are compulsory. They're compulsory payments. Everybody is supposed to pay for it. So when you don't pay taxes, it's a problem, and it should be treated as such. But then again, when you receive taxes, what do you do with those resources? I know there was a time the current president, Mr. President, when he was governor of Lagos, that time if you go to Lagos, then you will see anywhere they are carrying out projects, you will see this slogan there, taxpayers' money at work, or taxpayers' money in action, something like that. So, but how have the results of this action, reflected in the life of ordinary Nigerian? That is the problem, because if you look at the indicators of progress now, development, you see that it is not showing. Government is still having a debt issue. Government is still having to deal with, poverty issue. We don't need to overstate how poor Nigerians are, and how poor we have further become as a result of these new policies of subsidy removal, and the other one, the floating of the exchange rate, and other serious macroeconomic issues. So these things do not necessarily show you that this is a country where people pay tax, or even if they pay tax, that the result or the reward for that tax payment is being felt at their level. So if you ask me, I would say that taxes have not necessarily reflected in improvements in the quality of life.
All right. Now you said something like tax being our civic responsibility.
Yes,
that we know. It's always been said that voting is also a civic responsibility in this nation, and so many other things that we should do as citizens. And there is this saying, where the citizens are playing their own part, then those in the corridors of power should be playing their own part. Now, let's look at tax critically. How is it supposed to be? And for what purposes are taxes supposed to be? Of what purpose?
Well, you see, government cannot run an economy by faith or by miracles. No, government needs resources to be able to carry out its statutory responsibility. And one of the areas where government can generate revenue is through taxation. In fact, it's not just one of the areas, one of the key areas where government raises revenue, like in our own case, Nigeria. It's supposed to be taxation, it's supposed to be through rents, royalties. These are also taxation in their own way. You can also talk of tariffs on transactions with the external economy. So all these areas are areas where you can get revenues that you can use to drive the economy. Now, if that is the case, what are we supposed to use taxes for? It's very clear. Taxes are supposed to be used by government to carry out its responsibilities, its developmental objectives. How do you use it to drive education, for instance, health, improve standard of living, and just general quality of life. So government is supposed to use that monies that is generated from taxes to solve its pressing needs. And again, for a country like Nigeria that has a revenue problem, Nigeria seriously has a revenue problem.
How do you mean?
When I mean by we always look at our budget, for instance, we're always in a deficit. And the deficit is almost the size of what we claim to be the revenue we get for the budget. So it means that almost half of our budget is being funded by debt, as loans now. Then most of our revenue from what we do is still, most of our revenue, about 90-something%, though I think it has reduced to about 60 or so, as we use it to service existing debt. So you see that there's a big crisis on our hands. That's why they had to take these hard decisions of removing subsidy and removing, floating the naira, so that they can free up some money. Because there was if we had continued the way we were going before, there would have been a problem. So the thing is, yes, the government has a need to look at the way taxes are administered in this country. And
I think that brings us to the second bill, because the second bill says that Nigeria Tax Bill 2024 aims to propose bills. The second one says that Tax Administration Bill that seeks to provide a clear and concise legal structure for managing taxes in Nigeria to reduce disputes and, of course, enhance efficiency. This thing, how achievable in the current state of the nation,
Tax administration is something that is serious business. It's not something you joke with. In fact, my friend in the UK will tell you, anybody you see working for the tax authority, that they don't smile. That's how serious they take it. That once you have been found, or maybe there's a hint that you have any irregularity as far as your tax is concerned, they take it up with you, irrespective of who or whatever you are. So that's how serious taxes are supposed to be in the country, especially for a country like Nigeria, which is the kind of responsibilities government is supposed to have because of our population. And again, we have a largely informal sector. So when you have an informal sector, what is basically trying to tell you is that the administration of taxes in that system will be very complex. So you need to be very strategic in how you are addressing tax administration, because to even collect taxes is you still have to spend money.
I was even coming to that, because in this nation we have a lot of tax evasion by companies, by individuals, by big people, or even at that.
So you see, when you have this kind of environment, so you need to be very strategic, because people will not easily, maybe out of ignorance or deliberately, they may not really volunteer their tax, their revenue profile for proper tax assessment. So you need to structure the tax system in such a way that it can help you to achieve
maximum returns at minimal cost, because it doesn't make sense when you will use 8 naira to pursue a tax of 10 naira. It doesn't make sense. So how then do we cut down the cost of tax administration so that the taxmen, maybe we'll come to that maybe when we come to the way forward, but so that the taxmen can be able to do their job efficiently, because efficiency still talks about minimizing waste and achieving the best results. So I want to that the position of this bill is very timely, but the thing is, this is the country that is not, it has never been bereft or lacking good policy ideas. It is the gap between having the ideas to the implementation. That is where the problem is.
And look at, as you were speaking, I'm looking at the Nigerian government, the kind of huge job they have to do. One, to really get the people to understand the need to pay tax. Going by the Nigerian populace, majority of us believes that the government is not truthful. The government is not open to its policies, its plans, and its implementation and everything. Now, the huge work they are going to do to really get the people to understand that, okay, how do we even tell them that we are now open? We can work for, their money can work for them when we actually get them. I don't know. This is just what is coming to my mind. How can Nigerian government convince the masses that there is need for you to pay tax and that we are ready and open to allow your monies to work for you?
Well, the issue of mistrust is not just an issue of taxes. There are a lot of other issues.
That's what I said. I said Nigerian populace generally see that they say that government is not open.
Yeah, generally, it's not just an issue of taxes, and rightly so, because of the lack of transparency and openness on most of government activities. That is why people can have this kind of feeling or impression, and they hold on to it. And again, remember that I said that I've been issue that this country had not really been paying attention to taxes because we felt that we were doing relatively okay as far as crude oil revenue were concerned. But now that we are having, a little wobble, not just a little wobble, now that we're having challenges with that sector, and at the same time, we are having an expanding population, meaning more responsibility. That is when government is now remembering that, okay, we have to look at our tax system and how do we, make sure that this system, steps in to augment what we are getting from here. But, Nigerians have become so used to not paying taxes. Taxes we pay in this country mainly because of, again, the nature of our economy, informal sector situation, large informal sector, has been the ones we pay through all these levies, fines, ticketing, all these ones they do. But
and for civil servants that is collected upfront from the salaries.
And those who are actually working. You see, when I mean by working, those who work in private or public establishments, that that yes, you can you can make tax deductions on their income at source. At the same time, companies who are registered, who are well established. But that most of our organizations, our companies here, businesses, still fall under the SME bracket, small, medium scale. Yeah. So at that stage, they are still finding it difficult to have a kind of coordination on the number of businesses we have, their employees, what their returns look like. And so it is something that will take time for them to achieve. So I personally believe that it's good that we are having a reform, we are having this conversation again, but how do we make sure that these reforms are actually, we get it right this time? Because we don't have all day. Nigeria has a limited time before we approach what we call a fiscal cliff. And when you get to a cliff and you fall off, that you keep falling. So we don't want to go the way of Zimbabwe, Venezuela, and co. No, So how then do we, and maybe, and yes, it is now left for government to show that seriousness, that yes, it needs to convince Nigerians that these taxes are actually for you. And how does he do that? It needs to come out transparently and say, this is what we have been getting before, this is what we have used it to do, and so on and so forth. I want to give you an example. This idea of, there's this contractual agreements now they have with some big organizations, companies, where that money you are supposed to pay as taxation, for instance, they tell you, use it to construct this stretch of road. Okay. Just like they gave orders. Now, Dangote has some, he's doing this on Enugu Expressway, was handed over to MTN and stuff like that. At least, things like this, they come out public with it and they say, this is it. So Nigerians know that, okay, no, this is the people that are responsible for this. They use their tax money. So what happens to other taxes that you get, and what projects do you tie them to? That is it. So if it shouldn't be something that before you get, you have to go to court, or you have to petition and petition. No, just we have this Freedom of Information Act in this country that guarantees that you can get any information from any public institution upon request. So allow people that when somebody walks up to the FiRS, okay, we are coming to that other bill, and say we need so information of taxes and this, they give you the information, in record time. So these are the things that we are discussing.
All right, in case you're just joining us, this is ABS Television, and we are talking about proposed new bills for national tax reforms and new for Federal Inland Revenue Service, that FiRS. We take a short break here, and when we return, we look at how feasible these reforms can be, and of course, how to get the people to start paying taxes in Nigeria and allow their taxes to work for them. We'll be back after the break.
Assisting the government. If you are paying your tax, somehow you are helping the government to do his work very, very well. It is very, very necessary that we pay tax. The issue of tax reform changing from one name to the other, that is not the issue. The issue is the people that are paying the tax. And the people who governments introduced to be collecting this tax, are they doing their work? If they are doing their work, then government will be able to function very well, because as a government cannot be everywhere. So it's people that are working with the government that will help government to make sure that all these things are working the way it should be. So changing name is not the problem. The problem is people that are working with government. That is the problem. So if they will be able to tell themselves the truth. So I think all the money that is being generated from the tax will be used to work the way it should be.
He's removing tax from small business owners. I think that's okay because they have cheapest to it.
There must be a reason for that. Maybe there's a reason why they change everything in order to develop or to shop with governments at the moment for better product interest and revenue. Maybe we see people that are there that are not performing very well. Maybe they are not generating enough tax. They want to change the name and change the name as well, so that everything will become new, so that the development and change actually which we promise Nigeria will come in.
Tax dị da ọ dị ha ọ kwesịrị ekwesị agụụ na-agụ n'obodo a ebe ọrụ na ibie n'aka ego adị ebe ọrụ na ibie n'aka ego adị ọrịa tax dị ha kedu ebe ihe esi weta ego wee kwe ya na-erefu ekịta 1,200 wee dị rere 1,150 iji ịgba moto from here to Ọnịcha kịta 1,500 by the time the fuel dị ọnụ ala ife niile ga-ere ụbọchị sere anyị nwere ayọkwu ya ayọ gbalụ ka ọ ga-esi wee ebe ka fuel gbatue na fuel gbatue ife niile ga-adị mma.
You're welcome back to the live studios of Good Morning Anambra. We are talking about the proposed new bills for national tax reforms and new for FiRS. And I have in the studio an economist from Chukwuemeka Odomego, Juku University here, Nonso Ekesiobi, talking about this issue. And of course, we've said so many things concerning this tax reforms, whether our nation actually looks like a place where taxes are paid and how transparent is our government, in letting people know what they are contributing and, of course, what their money stands to do for them, and which I believe will propel the people to pay more taxes or to pay taxes when they are called upon to do so. Now, so we've gone to the streets and felt the pulse of the masses. There's something one guy said that is so significant in all of this. He said, I talked about the issue of people that will collect these taxes. How sincere would they be? How, their integrity, something like that. I think that's what the young man was saying. So how do you see that?
It's a chain of responsibility from whoever is the head of the tax authority to the field officers. They are as important as every aspect of that link. So I mentioned something about the manpower, those who are carrying out this interface, especially those who are relating with the taxpayers directly. So they need to be properly trained, because we don't need, yes, they may be trained at the point of employment, but they need to be updated regularly. They need to be taught new skills, especially soft skills, how they can be able to carry out their responsibility, to be able to exude that confidence, give people that trust, give people that reason to trust them, that look, we are going to do this, we are going to do that. They not only see you when it's time to pay tax or when it's time to come and check their books, they also see you when it's time to tell you, oh, look at in your neighboring community, see what the government has been doing, especially with what it has been getting from tax, your tax proceeds, look at where it has been going to. And the rest. So people, they should be able to go beyond just coming to enforce payment, to communicating with these persons, informing them about developments as far as projects government is doing, and how you can make their tax payments more convenient. Because to even pay taxes in this country is another challenge. We know that, yes, we had this issue of a tax identification number system thing, but I feel that more effort needs to be done as far as enlightenment, taxation, tax literacy is concerned, so that people can understand that most of these things they are doing is for their benefit. Yes, we know that you are requested to provide that number, especially when you want to have one or two dealings, maybe contracts or something with government. But those who don't have that kind of those who don't have that kind of responsibility, or we have that need to present the tax identification number, what else? If you need what do you call it? Driver's license. I think nowadays they are linking all these things together. But you see that issue of inclusion. Because of, like I mentioned earlier, the informal sector, large informal sector, you see that many Nigerians are still, not included in the financial system. How many people have bank accounts? How many people have, among those who have bank accounts, how many of those accounts are still functional? And the rest of the, so these are areas you were able to bring in people into the tax ecosystem. As far as our country is concerned, what's it called? Another argument is this. We always think of, maybe when the government thinks of what it does with tax, the major approach is always to increase the tax rate, increase the tax rate. Look at, for instance, and the major culprit is when it comes to indirect taxes, like the value-added tax. Because, again, we don't have a formal economy. So they look for indirect ways to collect tax, because they know nobody is ready to do the job of streamlining our informal sector, so that we can understand what we are doing. It's not just to be working with assumptions.
I believe it's in the bill. Probably when it is passed into law, so it could be streamlined.
Yes, it should be streamlined. That's part of what they are trying to look at in one of those bills. And increasing the tax base, increasing the number of people who are paying taxes in the country. There are a lot of people who are not paying taxes. It's as if the burden is on you and I, those of us in informal paid employment, that we can deduct our taxes as source. But other sectors, other areas of the economy, what's happening to their taxes? So these are questions.
All right. The number 3 bill there seeks to intended to repeal the Federal Inland Revenue Service Act and create the Nigeria Revenue Service. And in our topic of discussion, we say that this is new for the Federal Inland Revenue Service. So what do you think will happen here, or should happen here?
Well, maybe it has become necessary to rejig
the system,
the architecture of that Federal Inland Revenue. That's why the bill, when it has been debated and revised to a working document, then we can see what they actually have in mind. So the only point I just want to make is that we are not so excited that or overly excited that they want to change the name. Yes, the problem is not necessarily, it's not only the name.
Just like we've changed so many other.
We have changed many other government institutions.
And the
problem still remains. So these things it's not necessarily in the name per se, but it is in the deliverables. So now that we are changing the name, or we have decided to change the name from Federal Revenue to Nigerian Revenue Service, Nigerian Revenue Service. So will it make them more proactive, more responsive, more accountable? These are questions that we need to ask as to what is going to happen with how does the chairman of or the director, whichever one they will want to call it this time, how does that person emerge? These responsibilities, like you see what the mess they did with the central bank leadership and the rest of them. For the past 2 central bank governors, they did not complete their tenure. Sanusi didn't complete his tenure. Emefiele didn't complete. And everything has one controversy or the other. But these are very serious institutions. Just the Federal Inland Revenue is like the central bank of the fiscal side. Because in the economy, we have the fiscal side and the monetary side. The monetary side is run by the CBN. The Federal Revenue is a key arm of the fiscal side. So how do we determine who heads that body, for instance? All these things are things that you come and that goes a long way in telling you the level of credibility that you are to expect from that kind of body, and how far-reaching the activities will be. It shouldn't be something, let me use our Nigerian language, it shouldn't be a job for the boys. No, it should be very serious. Really, I like this guy, this is a personal opinion anyway, the chairman of the fiscal committee of the federal government. At least, you see, if you trace the background, you see it's coming from, in a financial space. It has to do with auditing, tax revenue issues, and so on and so forth. So when you see those kind of persons speak, but it's not when you go and bring one retired senator or one former ambassador or one relative to somebody somewhere and you give the person that job and you expect the person to deliver. How? All
right. Now I know that the last but not the least bill, talks about tribunal and ombudsman of tax. And I was like, we know our system. Just like we said earlier, that most of Nigerian populace, believe that the government is not open, they're not transparent. Now, when this tribunal comes up or comes into effect, just like you said that the taxes are meant for everybody in the nation, whether you're big, you're small. That is why we have pay as you earn, But in this nation, most times, you see, you can believe with me that there are so many big people that don't pay taxes. And those people are supposed to bring in more things that develop our nation for us. So when this tribunal comes on board, what magic do you think they're going to do?
Well, it's good, at least. So it's just, but you see, all these things we have. I don't blame Nigerians when they are not so excited or when they are pessimistic about most of these
tax policies or reforms. Look at the issue of, you made mention of voting as a civic right. So I want to take a leaf from that example. You know that in part of our electoral reforms, still reforms, so one of the things they've brought up is the issue of electoral tribunals to try cases, immediately try cases of electoral offenders, be it on the INEC side or on the voter side or on the political party side. So the tribunal will be sort of an independent entity to try all these things, whoever is involved. Now that is the same idea that they are trying to produce or replicate in this issue of tax tribunals and the tax ombudsman.
When you evade tax payment to be tried,
tax
and if found culpable,
so
you go to jail.
This is now somebody, or this is now an institution or a body now that will be independent from the tax authority who will be trying tax-related matters to make sure that there is speedy administration of justice, settlement of disputes, and so on and so forth, so as to make our tax system very productive. So removing all those bottlenecks and adjudicating on issues relating to tax as soon as they come. Because we know that if we go through our normal legal process, you may still be at the high court level 10 years. Then by the time you go to appeal, another 10 years. Then Supreme Court, another 10 years. And the matter must have, faded away. Yeah. So, but in this case now, we are saying that it's good. You can have a tax body, a tribunal, and the ombudsman, who will be the independent person. But my worry is who will appoint that ombudsman? Who will appoint people in that tribunal? How will they emerge? Because that will also tell you, because in that tribunal, like I mentioned when I was discussing that of INEC or the electoral thing, tax officials who have been found to be corrupt or circumventing the system or manipulating it to their own private gain, their own private pockets, diverting this thing. For instance, when we say tribunal, people only think it's those who avoid or evade tax that will be persecuted in such tribunals. No, even the tax officials, those who have been found guilty, culpable of one thing or the other, or those who have been alleged to have been doing certain shady deeds, will also appear there. So, will justice be fair and firm across board? That is the issue. So these things, like I said, are still at the discussion stage. When the document comes out, then we will know how serious they are as far as this thing is concerned.
All right, I don't know. What challenges do you think government will face on the part of the government and, of course, on the part of the people when it comes to the implementation of all these bills, when they eventually come to play?
One is the political will. It's one thing to say that you want to do this thing. It's another thing to have the will to go through. So it's not to just come and play to the gallery or play lip service to say we want to do reforms. Are you doing reforms for reforming's sake, or you want to do reforms that will change what is going on?
For the benefit of Nigerians. Yes,
for the benefit of Nigerians. Look at what is happening with the prison issue. Now everybody is now trying to, the Minister of Interior, the Director of the Nigerian Correctional Service, everybody is trying to say no, nobody wants to take responsibility. And everybody is claiming ignorance, that they are not aware such a thing can be happening. And so we need to come out openly. So we don't have something similar in this tax system. Yes, if we are to do these reforms, we know that we have a tax system that is not transparent. That's a challenge. We know that we have complex tax policies. I know that the fiscal committee of the government recommended not too long ago that they should reduce the number of taxes we pay from about 80-something. They should streamline it to about, I think, between 8 to 10, so that it will give a clear, direction for people to pay. It's not when you pay here, you pay here, you pay here. At the federal level, different parastatals will be charging different taxes for the same thing. Then you now come to what they call a multiple taxation. That is paying these taxes across tiers of government. Local government, you pay the same tax. State government, you pay the. So these things need to be clarified. Who and what is what. So these policies should be made to make our tax policies very clear. Again, these policies should also encourage a situation where there can be more enlightenment, awareness,
as to tax effort and what the proceeds of tax are being used for. How do we leverage technology? That's another thing. How do we leverage technology in the sense that how do we use technology to make these things easy?
And you can easily
Yes.
easily do it from the comfort of your
from
home.
anywhere. How can we make taxes? So, because another reason that maybe people don't pay taxes, maybe when they think of how the processes will be involved before you pay this tax, they'll be like, oh, they will let them just not take something that way. So, but again, we talk of training. I talked about training of the staff. How then do you train these tax authorities, staff authorities, to be as professional as possible, to be, and in fact, they should run that thing like a private sector, in the sense that everybody will have a target. Yes, if he has to get to that point. So it's not just like they do it like any public service job where they just do it like any public service job where you can just wake up, go to work anytime you like, and just do things. No, there should be targets. There should be KPIs ahead. That is it, key performance indicators, that will be assigned to every layer from the directorate of whoever we head the what's it called, Nigerian Revenue Service. So that, most times you have seen directors of the FiRS in the past saying that when they came in, that they improved the revenue from so trillion to so trillion. Yes, when you come in, they should give you this thing. Then at the state levels, this idea of leasing out tax responsibilities to individuals or contracts, they may need to review that. Why do you have government? Why do you have people who are responsible for that in the government? Why do you have to, lease this thing out?
And those
it's just like the other day.
Those that wield big sticks on the road,
Yeah, it's just like
people.
The other day, the chief of defense staff was taking questions, and they asked him, why don't they employ private security consultants, contractors, to come and handle some of our challenges? He said, okay, he cited an example. Other countries that have been doing it for 10, 20 years. What are the results? That it is their job. And the only thing is that they need the right equipment, the right motivation, the right intelligence to be able to do their job. The same thing with our tax officers. It is their responsibility. This idea of subletting this thing to individuals, and no, they should give. And again, that training again has to do with their conduct. We saw there was a time a video trended about the way some persons were harassed by so-called tax officers. Because of this thing, hitting them, molesting them. That is not the way it works. If somebody doesn't pay taxes, you charge the person. That's why you need these tribunals and the rest. You take the person there, and the person is tried, according to the letter of the law, and not for you to take laws into your hands. Then you talk of, what's it called? We have talked of, I've mentioned that of technology, but we also have to, training, but we also have to look at how seriously, how do we expand our tax base? How do we make sure that taxes, more persons are brought into the tax net? So if we consider these issues and more, how do we make, most of our policies, sometimes when they come, they are too high sounding.
All right.
They are too technical.
Basically.
But how do you make it now such that the average man on the street, the market woman, will understand this thing?
Okay, basically, because of our time, what's the one basic thing you can tell the government and the people, when it comes to tax payment, and of course, how transparent the government should be?
One basic thing I would just say is, look, it is only when you pay tax that you have the right to demand for accountability from your government.
And good governance.
So it's a give and take thing. So you cannot hold the government accountable when you have not done what is expected of you. So it is a give and it's an input-output process. It is when you pay taxes that will now ginger you. It will now motivate you to be able to begin to ask the right questions. How do you go? I'm happy with what happened with local government elections and the rest of it. At least we should start holding people accountable. It's not everything that when we sit down we begin to accuse the president. When people pay these taxes, the responsibility, it now behoves on the government or whichever tier of government the taxes are paid to. It now behoves on the government to now, take these taxes, given to them in trust, and use it responsibly. When they use it responsibly, you and I will not be complaining.
All right, we'd like to thank you so much for being here. Nonso Ekesobi, a lecturer at Chukwuemeka Odumegu Ojukwu University here in Anambra State. You are an economist. We thank you so much for being here to explain to us in detail what you have just done. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.